Hey everyone, this is Angel with Tech2Legend. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to install and configure free WireGuard VPN server on Ubuntu. I will be doing this on Oracle Cloud Free Tier instance, but this instruction should work on any Ubuntu server. So the first thing that you want to do is go ahead and log into your Ubuntu server, and from there go ahead and switch to root, as I will be running all my commands as root today. The next thing that you want to do is go ahead and run apt update, and after your repositories are up to date, you can go ahead and run apt install WireGuard, and that will install WireGuard on your server. Once you have your server installed, go ahead and switch your directory to etc WireGuard. And once we're in etc WireGuard, we're going to go ahead and run umask 077. That will change the umask of our directory. So when we create new files in here from now on, they will be only readable and writable by the owner of that directory, which in our case is our root user. Now, once we have umask set to 077, we're going to go ahead and generate a server private and public key. And we will do that by running the following command. And I'm going to go ahead and list this directory so you can see the two keys. So we have a server private key, public key, and as you can see, they're only readable and writable by our root user. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we're going to create a configuration file for our WireGuard interface. So I'm going to use Nano to create that file. You can use any text editor that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and open this file. And in this file, we're going to put some information here for our interface. So we will have the IP, and I decided to use the 10.16.0 network. So the IP for our interface will be 10.16.01. For port, I decided to use the standard WireGuard port. Again, you can change that if you wish. And then for the private key, I'm going to go ahead and get that key from the pair of keys just we created. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And here I'm going to cat that private key. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the key and put it into my configuration file. There you go. The next thing I'm going to do, go ahead and save this file and close it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start up my interface. So actually first I'm going to go ahead and set it up so it starts on boot. So I'm going to run the following command to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and start it. And I'm doing copy and paste here to save some time, but I will make sure to put all these commands in the comment section under the video. So let's see now, what did I do wrong? It does not like something. Go ahead and run this command here to see what is it complaining about. Unrecognized interface. Okay, let's go back to our configuration file, and it seems like when I copied and paste, I missed the square bracket here. So I'm going to go ahead and save the file again, and then I'm going to try to start my interface. All right, this seems to have worked. So I'm going to go ahead and change the status of the service. And as you can see, now it's loaded and active. And what you can also do is run the WG command. And that will show us that we have a WG interface that is listening on port 51820. And if you run IPA, you will also see that we have this interface here with that IP 10 of 1601. Now I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up a configuration for my client that I will use to connect to my VPN server. So to do that, first I'm going to go ahead and create a directory. And so this client will be my Mac computer that I'm currently using for this tutorial. So I will just create a directory here that I'm going to call it Mac. And this is going to be the directory that I will keep all my configurations for this client in. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my directory to that Mac directory. And in that directory, I'm going to go ahead and with the same command that we used for the server, I'm going to go ahead and generate a private key and a public key. Those will be my client's keys. So I'm going to go ahead and run this command to generate the two keys, and I'm going to go ahead and list. And as you can see, we have the two keys here. And the same way, like we set up a configuration file for our server, we're going to set up a configuration file for our client. So I'm going to go ahead here, and with Nano, I'm going to open this file. And again, you can name those files the way you want it. I'm just keeping this kind of standard names for them, and I just put a name of the device that this configuration will be for. Now that I have this file created, I'm going to go ahead and paste the following directives in it. And again, I'm going to post all these things in a description under the video, so you can just copy and paste, but I'm going to quickly go over it. So we're going to start a new interface. In the private key section here, that will be the private key for our client. So I'm going to go ahead and close this file. Make sure you save the file when you close it. And I'm going to cat the private key for my client, which in this case is my Mac. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the key. A lot of copy and paste in this tutorial. And I'm going to go back to this file and I'm going to put the private key here. Make sure you keep good track of those keys, because if they get out of whack, it gets kind of hard to figure out what's what. Then this will be my address. Again, I chose the 10.16.0 network. So my first IP went for my VPN, and I'm going to give my .2 to my first client. And for DNS, I choose to use Cloudflare and Google servers as secondary. You can make any combinations, or you can use any DNS server you want. And then for peer key, here the peer will be our server. So for peer public key, we're going to use the public key of our server. So I'm going to go ahead, close the file, and make sure you save it again before you close it. And I'm going to cat my server's public key. So we called that server public key. So I'm going to cat this. And I'm going to go back to the file, and here I'm going to put my server public key. And for allowed IP addresses, we're going to put quad 0. That will force all the traffic to go through the VPN server. So make sure that you put here 0000 if you want all your traffic to go through your VPN server. And that way, when your client goes out on the internet, it will appear like it's coming from your VPN server. So down here, we're going to put the public IP for our server. So in my case, that is 192.122.149.20, followed by the port that we set up. Again, I use the standard port. If you use different port, make sure you use the port that you choose. And if you don't know how to get this IP, I'm going to show you in a second here. So I'm going to go ahead and save the file. The easiest way to check that is you can just curl it. So you can use curl ifconfig.io, and that will show you your public IP. So again, I'm going to go back to this file. Here you want to put for endpoint, that will be the public IP address of your VPN server. So I'm going to go ahead and close the file. Once we have that set, we're going to have to go to our server configuration file, and we're going to have to add our client there now. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to go nano, and that's located one directory out. So I'm going to say WG, and this is where our server configuration will be. And here we will add one more section, and we're going to call this section peer. And in this section, we're going to put the information for our client. So basically on the server config, we're going to allow this client to connect. So we're going to use that IP that we set for our client, 10.16.02. And here for public key, we're going to use the public key for our client. So I'm going to go ahead and save the file, exit, and I'm going to cat my client's public key. So that will be Mac public key, and there it is. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And then down here, I'm going to go ahead and paste the key. And I'm going to go ahead, save, and close the file. Once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and stop. And then I'm going to go ahead and start my WireGuard service. And once we have all that done, I'm going to go ahead and run that WG command. And as you can see now, we have our WG0 interface that's listening on port 51N20, and it's also allowing one client to connect, and that client is this 10.16.02 client. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open some ports here and do some configurations on the firewall that will allow us all our traffic to get routed properly. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to run the following command that will allow IP forwarding on our server. So this will be the command. Again, all these commands will be posted under the video, so you can just copy and paste. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open 51820 port on iptables. And one important thing to remember is I'm running this on Oracle Cloud. So I have my port open on Oracle Cloud security groups. I have this port open here. Now, if you're on a different cloud provider, make sure that you have that 51820. If you use that port, make sure that you have that port open. Or if your server is at home, make sure that you have this port open on your home router. But you need this port to be open in order for everything to work. So again, on Oracle Cloud, you're going to do this in your security groups. Same thing with Amazon or whatever cloud provider you have, make sure this port is open. Now that we have this out of the way, we open the port in the iptables. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to run another command against iptables. And that command will make sure that all of our outgoing traffics are translated via the VPN. I'm going to go ahead and run that. And then we're going to run a command that will allow all the traffic on that WireGuard interface that we set up earlier. And then we're going to run a couple more commands that will allow packets to be forwarded between our public interface, that ENP0S3 in my case, and the WireGuard interface. And one thing I forgot to mention is when I use those interfaces here, make sure that you check what your interface is on your system. Again, if you run this IP space A command, you will see that in my case, my public interface will be this one, ENP0S3, and the WG is the interface that we set up for our VPN. You can run this command on your machine and you can see what's the name of your interface, and make sure to replace that in these commands here. So right here and here and here, make sure to use the proper interface name. And once you have that done, we should be ready to test our connection. So to do that, there are a couple of ways list here. So you can either download this file to your system and then you can load this file on the WireGuard, or the easiest way for me to do it since I'm on a cloud is to just copy and paste the content of this file into my WireGuard application. So I'm going to go ahead and cat this file here just to get the content of it, and I'm just going to copy and paste. So there you go, and make sure you get that first square bracket. We noticed earlier that it's very important. If it's missing, things are not working. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that into my WireGuard app. So WireGuard, and click on it. And so in here, again, if you downloaded the file, you can just click on import tunnels from a file and point it to the file. In my case, instead of downloading the file, I think it's easier to just go ahead and add an empty tunnel, and then in here in this empty tunnel I'm going to go ahead and paste all the stuff that I copied from my server. And up here you can name it anything you want. I'm going to call mine WireGuard, and I'm going to go ahead and click save. You have to click on allow here, and now we have this set. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here on my web browser, and here I'm going to go ahead and check my IP right now so you can see what my home network IP is. So I'll say what's my IP, and as you can see my IP now is 66.188.46.49. and actually I'm gonna also run a speed test so we can compare the differences between the speeds when I'm going through the VPN that's on Oracle Cloud versus my direct internet connections to see if there's any difference. So I'm gonna say speed test. It'll be kind of interesting to see that. And as you can see, I'm going to about almost 300 megabits per second. So 305 megabits per second is my download speed without the VPN. And it seems like 11 is my upload. Yep, that looks like about right. And now I'm going to go ahead and connect to my VPN. So I'm going to go ahead and click on activate here. And if we did all the configurations correctly, this should work. And yep, it looks like I'm connected. And if I check on my server here, I'm going to run the WG command. And as you can see, I have established a connection with my server. So let's go and check the IP to see if it's actually working. So I'm going to go here and what's my IP. And this IP should change now. Instead of showing 66.188.146.49, it should show me that IP of my Oracle Cloud server. So let's go ahead and refresh this. And that did not work. Is it cached? What's my IP? Why did that not work? There you go, it must have just been cached. It seems like everything is working fine, it took a little bit for my browser to pick the change. And then I'm gonna go ahead now and run that speed test to see if that's gonna be any different. So let's see, it was about 300 megabits per second without the VPN, and now with the VPN, yeah, as you can see, there is a difference. There's quite a bit of a difference, but it's still a pretty good connection, 212. But anyway, we have our server installed now, and you can see that our client is connected and the internet is working, and it shows me my IP. The next thing I want to show you is if you decided you want to set up a new client, what you're going to want to do is just repeat the same process. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and set up one for my iPhone. I'm going to go ahead in the same way like we did for our Mac computer. I'm just going to create a new directory. So I'm going to call it WireGuard iPhone directory. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into that directory. And the same thing as we did with our Mac device, we're going to go ahead and generate a private and public key pair, and then we will create a configuration file. And in that configuration file, we're going to do the exact same thing as we did with our Mac computer. We're going to go ahead and give an IP for my phone, and in this case I will give it IP3. I'm going to keep the same DNS, but if you want, you can have a device that use different DNSs servers, so you can go ahead and change that for each device. Here for private key, that will be again the private key for our device. So I'm going to go ahead, save the file, list the directory, and cat that private key for the iPhone. This will be configuration for my iPhone again. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to put it here in this file. There you go. And then for public key, that will be my server's public key. So I'll say cat, and that will be server public key. Here's the key, and I'm going to go ahead and paste the key in here. And again, in allowed IPs, you want to have quad zeros, and for endpoint, that will be the public IP of your server. And we're going to use the same standard WireGuard port 51820. I'm going to go ahead and save this file now. Now, the next thing that you want to do again is you want to go to your server configuration file, and you're going to have to add that new client here, right? Like, don't forget that. Many times I'll forget to add it, and I'm like, hey, why is stuff not working? So I'm going to go ahead here, and we're going to create another section for peer, and that will be the IP of our iPhone, which will be 10.16.03. And up here in the public key, we're going to have to put the public key for our iPhone. So I'm going to say iPhone public key. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here. And now the next thing I'm going to show you here, it is pretty important, is how to get this configuration file to your mobile device. Well, again, you can upload it to your mobile device. You can send the file via email or something like that. But I found it the easiest way to do is to generate a QR code. And with that QR code, you can just scan it with your WireGuard app and have it loaded on it. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead first and restart my WireGuard service. So I'm going to run this command and then this command to start it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to install an application called QREncode. And so this application will help me to get this configuration down on my phone via QR code. So you're going to go ahead and install this application, and then all you need to do is just run the following command, and that will grab your configuration file. So I guess you can see here we're running the QR code, and we're going to use ANSI UTF-8 standard, and then we're going to pass it the configuration file. And when we run this command, we will generate this QR code. And then this QR code, you can just go ahead and scan it with your WireGuard app on your mobile device, and that will set up the WireGuard connection on your device. And there's one last thing, but very important thing that maybe I should have showed you earlier, but I just thought of it. All the commands that we run against iptables and all that, those are all just temporary. If you reboot your computer, all these configurations will be lost. So one thing that we want to do is we want to add all these commands to our WireGuard configuration file. So to do that, I'm going to go to, again, nano and then wg0conf. And here in this file, like right about down here somewhere, I'm going to go ahead and paste a bunch of lines. And these are all the commands that we run earlier. These are the commands that open our pores, that set up our pore forwarding, the masquerading, that allow the traffic on our WireGuard interface, and the ones that allow packet forwarding between the public and the private interface. So I'm just going to copy all these lines and just kind of paste them in here. And I'm going to go ahead and save the file. And again, I'm going to go open the file so you can kind of take a look. But I will have all this in the description section under the video. But if you remember from earlier in the video, right before we try to connect, we run all these commands in the command line. So I'm just putting them here into the configuration, so that way when we start our WireGuard service, this command will auto execute and it will make it so our VPN is working. And again, if you stop the service, the post down commands will run and those ports will get closed and all these IP table rules will get removed. So remember to do that, otherwise on reboot your WireGuard VPN server will not be working. Again, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I think that's it for today. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you liked it, please click on the like button. If you want to see more of my videos, go ahead, subscribe for my channel. If you have any questions or recommendations, go ahead and post in a comment section under the video.